Right now, President Trump unveiling new guidelines on prayer in public schools. His announcement coincides with the National Religious Freedom Day. With me now, Trump 20 Senior Legal Advisor, Jenna Ellis. Jenna, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Charles.
All right, so we know that over the years, school prayer has been pushed out of schools. It's in many places it's been frowned upon, shunned. Even kids and teachers criticized for trying to practice, the religion, just a prayer. How does President Trump plan to change all of that?
Well, President Trump has taken a really significant step toward restoring religious freedom protections in America. Because let's remember, our Constitution requires our government to protect the fundamental right of the individual and organizations to openly identify as Christian or any other faith and not be treated differently or disparately by the government. And so for President Trump to take this decisive action to encourage prayer in schools, to encourage the individual and organizations to understand that they have the constitutional protections to exercise their religious freedom is really important. We've seen that the left has so eroded this understanding of what our Constitution obligates. So, for example, Charles, I always tell people that my right to free speech, freedom of association, free exercise of religion, that's not because of the First Amendment. The First Amendment simply guarantees that and protects and preserves it. But it is my God-given, fundamental, inalienable right that my government is obligated to preserve and protect. So in context, our Constitution simply requires our government to protect what our Declaration of Independence acknowledges comes from God, our Creator.
In the meantime, at this event, you've got Christians, Jewish, Muslim. It just shows that that this animosity, and by the way, a growing, very powerful animosity toward religion in this country, affecting a wide variety of people. It's just not against Christianity anymore.
Oh, absolutely. And, this is what the progressive leftist movement is about, is seeking to excise people of all faiths from the public square. And so that type of oppression, by saying that the so-called separation of church and state, which, by the way, is found nowhere in the Constitution, it's taking that principle and unfairly and unconstitutionally applying that to government. We're seeing that the progressive leftist agenda is to completely excise God from society. And so for President Trump to recognize that this is one of our fundamentally protected rights, that we the people need to be able to speak together about God and answer life's most basic questions of who we are, why we're here, who is God. Those types of things have to be able to take place in the public square, and it's not for the government to ever impose any sort of regulations that would disenfranchise any individual or organization from having the same right of access to federal funding simply because they identify as a faith-based organization.
So apparently the Department of Education is sending a letter to educational secretaries, officials in all 50 states to make sure that students and teachers are not discriminated against. Again, they're doing it under the auspices of the First Amendment and the Constitution, but more importantly, allowing students to be able to alert authorities. It's so interesting, all the efforts that have been we've seen put in place to counter bullying. This is one form of bullying that often students don't know where to go to or where to turn.
Absolutely. And, this is something that I'm so grateful for President Trump to bring the national spotlight on religious freedom. And he's done so in many different ways throughout the last 3 years of his administration, through the ministerial on religious freedom with the State Department. So many different ways. But to shine the light on educating students to say these are your constitutionally protected rights, and we are going to give you the tools that if you are bullied because of your faith or for any reason, for exercising any of your inalienable rights, then we're going to